What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about Wraith in Marvel's Spider-Man 2. And before I get too far in fact, the first thing I want to say here is this is all regardless of spoilers. I have not seen anything. I don't know specifically. I've heard about the ending, that it's online. I haven't actually seen it myself, nor know what it is. But this is all separate from that, just my own opinion. I know maybe to some it would be outdated because maybe people know what happens to Wraith or what happens to Venom, etc. So just to keep that in mind as this video progresses. But I wanted to do this for a while and talk about Wraith and talk about the importance of her character in this game, if she's even going to be all that important. And to me, that's extremely exciting because you may or may not know, I've made so many of these Spider-Man videos, and I have said it before, but not too often. I'm not a big fan of comics. I don't read comics. I don't know character backstories, things like that. My introduction to Green Goblin was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies. My introduction to Yuri and Wraith was Marvel Spider-Man 2018, okay? So what I know from Wraith is through that, through a Wikipedia search and things like that. That's all I really know. So this video is not necessarily where that character is going to end up, because if there's comic lines they could follow, I clearly have no idea what I would be talking about there. But I do want to discuss literally if she's going to be important or not important, because that's one of the great mysteries, I think, of this game, and something that Insomniac has done so well. Now, it does come with some faults. I'm going to say, for all the love that these games get, and they are fantastic, one thing I'm not a big fan of is resolving Yuri through DLC. And I've been a stickler for having big plot points in any game happen through DLC. That's a big negative to me, no matter what. It's not a Sony thing. It's not a Marvel versus DC thing. It's literally just games in general. So while I think what happens to her and how they even told it through the investigation and her just getting, whatever you want to say, very, very mad, right? Kind of going off the deep end. I loved it. I thought it was extremely well done, and it's kind of dark, and it's Spider-Man or Peter, losing this somewhat friend that he has. I think it was really well done. However, it was done through primarily, it was done through DLC, and I'm not a big fan of that, even if I did like what actually transpired. Now, when it comes to this game, the question would be, all right, do you lean into her or do you not? And again, without leaks, I can't go based off leaks. I haven't seen leaks myself, so this is all just on my own here. I would guess, okay, my prediction would be, I don't think she's going to be all that important. I want to say she's important. In fact, when I've done videos or podcasts with my friend Sway, right, he's talked about that he kind of thinks she's a hidden thing that they can just pull out and make a really big deal when we're not really paying attention. I think it's possible. I mean, her being in the trailer, the story trailer, but just for a second, right? Very, very little. In fact, when it happened, people were like, wait, was that Wraith? Was that actually her? It was such a small thing, but Insomniac is really good at misleading people. We've already seen it with Marvel's Spider-Man. We've talked about it with Venom, where it's okay, is Kraven or Venom the actual end villain in Spider-Man 2? It's possible. In fact, it's almost likely that they're not. That's something I've been saying for several weeks now before leaks, so you can't accuse me of anything. I've been saying it for a while, where it's are these two going to be the final villain? They make it look like it's Kraven, but when you look back at Spider-Man 2018, they make it look mainly at Mr. Negative. Doc Ock is really not kind of there, at least in the promotional stuff, and obviously that's the big twist, and that's the big thing with Spider-Man. So, we've talked about it with Venom and Kraven, right? You can have it in a small way, too. You could have it be with Wraith. So when it comes specifically to Venom and Kraven, you say, okay, are they going to be the final villain? Well, there's some tricks up Insomniac's sleeve that they could pull there. But what about a character that really nobody is focusing on? Nobody's really talking. Now, people like her, and people have talked about Wraith, but obviously she's not a massive focus of discussion or discourse of this game. It's mainly Venom, maybe Kraven, maybe theories of Green Goblin. I did a Green Goblin theory video a month and a half ago. That's where the talk is. For Wraith, well, I'm not saying she's going to be the final villain or anything crazy like that, but could she be a bigger kind of impact role on the story than what we're thinking? I feel like the answer could be yes. Again, what I would predict is it's not going to be too much. But I guess, that's subjective. What does that even mean? Maybe I should try to explain myself. I guess what I mean by that is I would not be surprised if it's kind of a Lizard arc. And I guess, we don't even know how much Kurt Connors or Lizard is in the game, but we've seen like the boss battle with him. We saw, when they first showed gameplay, you're chasing him through, the water and all that. So he's there, and maybe his arc is like an hour or so. Like he plays a part, he kind of gets in, gets out, right? Like that's how I envision him, at least. That's maybe not what happens, but that's what I think. Wraith, I think, could have a similar part to that. But the interesting thing is she's not really, or I don't foresee her as somebody who's a major part of like the symbiote storyline. And maybe I should like brush up on my Wraith knowledge in case I'm wrong there. But when I think of this game, and you think so much of Kraven and then Venom and the symbiote bouncing and Harry and all that stuff, how does Wraith really fit into that? She might fit in with the Kraven part because of like the hunting kind of idea, but she doesn't really fit in, at least not what I think, with the symbiote or Venom. So I think that limits her from a story perspective. So that's why I would kind of take the under in terms of how long she'd be in it. Maybe this is like a 30, 40, 50, 60-minute kind of arc where she's got like a main mission or two. You get in, you resolve it, or maybe you just kind of like float her out there and then you kind of pull her back, right? Because also, I guess the thing I want to bring up here is, well, there's a couple other options too. I guess we could jump to DLC really, really quickly where it's like, all right, you resolved her you transformed her in Spider-Man in the DLC. Would you dare do that again? You know what I mean? And it's possible because all signs kind of do point that there will be DLC, like a big DLC thing to this game. Now, would it be a Wraith DLC? I highly doubt it. So I put those odds kind of low. The only other thing it could be is side stuff, like a side mission, whatever, activities that you'd be doing throughout the game. Now, they're no strangers to that either. They did plenty of those in Spider-Man, even in the DLCs, right? So that's where I think she would maybe make her mark the most. The thing that's interesting, though, and we've gone to great lengths to kind of talk about this, when they went into that expanded trailer, or expanded New York, I think, and they showed a lot of icons. They showed a lot of like, okay, here's activities throughout the map, and when they're hovering on the map, and you can see, the fire thing and all that stuff, and the thing that looks like a symbiote, it's kind of pink, right? And we try to isolate, okay, well, what could each of these things be? If Wraith isn't any of them, which she could be, but she also could not be, then that really limits, I think, what you do with her, because if she's not a side collectible thing that eventually leads to something, then I don't even know what you do with her. Now, it's also important, and this is probably where we can leave this, the hints that we have is in that, I think it's the expanded New York thing, when they talk about going through side things in the game. They say you're going to, look through stuff or do things, throughout the world, and that'll lead to bosses. Remember, they talked about bosses that have not yet been seen in the universe. Now, when they said that, they showed Venom, which felt very off, and we've talked about that, but Wraith was also shown. So I think it's possible that she is one of those symbols, one of those just icons that we saw on the map, or they didn't show it. It was something, maybe they edited it out or whatever it may be, that she's not on there. So when we play the game, maybe she's not a part of the main story literally at all. Maybe she's kind of reserved, maybe a little Black Cat-like influence where she's mainly sidelined to a side thing in the main story. In the main story, you'd find, 20 things throughout the world, and then that ends with an encounter with Wraith. It's not a huge impact, and again, that's why I would take the under, because I wouldn't qualify that as something as massive as Venom, or as massive as Kraven, or if there's a mystery villain, she wouldn't be the same thing. She'd be under that, but she wouldn't be meaningless. It wouldn't be nothing, right? That's kind of where I see her, right in between very important and not important at all. And I hope that number one, it's probably going to catch people by surprise, because I don't really think many people are talking about Wraith. And number two, I hope they do it well. I feel like, again, I'm kind of harsh on them with the DLC thing, but I'll honestly say, I think it is going to kind of come back up in my head where if they sideline her, it's like, okay, well, she was a main part, Yuri was a main part of the story of Spider-Man, and then her descent into madness and, shifting her morals and all that stuff was primarily done through DLC that, not everybody did those DLCs. That's an honest fact. Not everybody. In fact, the majority of people did not play those DLCs that played the base game, right? So you had her kind of start her Wraith journey there, and then if you ended her Wraith journey with like a side activity in the base game of Spider-Man 2, I don't know. But at the same time, again, maybe they've trapped themselves because does she fit into the main story anymore? I don't know. I actually really don't know. So we'll see what they do, but that's kind of my speculation right now. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.